In business today, 3 things to know. First, personal computers headed to the garbage heap of history. Microsoft says we are in a post-PC world. We'll have coverage about the new tech conference in California. Then, lighting the match on new energy in Africa. The next boom could be in natural gas. And poet Maya Angelou dies. Her impact on some of the nation's great business leaders. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Microsoft's new CEO took to the stage at a tech conference in California and basically announced that the end of the personal computer is near. Satya Nadella was interviewed by the founders of the Code Conference, Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher. Mossberg is the former tech reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and this was Nadella's first big appearance as Microsoft's CEO. What exactly was he getting at, and how did he do? Technology analyst Max Raskin is back here on Arise Exchange to sort of give us a little bit of a breakdown. He spoke for 90 minutes, and the reviews have not been particularly good. No, he spoke for a long time, and he sort of fumbled around a little bit. He didn't hold up so great under pressure, and some people are saying that this is not a great first public outing for him. And unfortunately for a CEO today, you have to be more than just a numbers cruncher, especially in the tech world, and especially when you're comparing yourself to Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I mean, it's become a culture of celebrity. You see this show. You see this show, Silicon Valley, that popped up, and these tech stars are celebrities in their own right. Zuckerberg had a movie about him. Steve Jobs is, a larger-than-life figure. So you really need to bring it if you're going to be a CEO of one of those companies. But you have said that he was supposed to be seen as a breath of fresh air in Microsoft after the Steve Ballmer years, which got bogged down in bureaucracy. You think that still holds true? Yeah. So I mean, I don't know whether or not the image that he portrayed today and the how he did at this show is representative of how he's been doing at Microsoft, because he's really been opening up the company and doing a lot of things that were previously not the company's culture, and it was a real breath of fresh air. When he's talking about the end of the personal computer, this is the company that helped make the personal computer mainstream to everybody. What is he meaning? Well, what he's meaning is that people don't necessarily need computing power on their person. What you really need is access to your photos, the ability to message people. But most people aren't, numbers crunching. They're not running serious bandwidth. They don't need to do a lot on their computers. So you're going to see the move to mobile and the move to tablets, and there's not a big need for large amounts of computing power. So by him saying that, then, is he sort of throwing in the towel then on some key Microsoft applications, or is he saying we're going to change and adapt as a company and make these work? Well, I think he's saying that all of those applications can be on different devices. So you can have email, you can have Outlook, but it might be on one of their phones, or you can have gaming, but it might be on Xbox. So you're going to see segmentation problems. And it's really kind of interesting because not so long ago, they finally announced that Microsoft Outlook and Office Suite would be available on Apple's iPad. And I got the sense that was sort of finally the final concession that they are moving away from the PC. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that people want to work together. It's getting to the point where things are so integrated, and Apple has just done such a great job with the iPhone that it doesn't make sense to fight this trend. We look at continents like Africa and places in South America where PCs have been traditionally very expensive for people. Is this possibly going to open up new opportunities for them because they're taking away the PC? So the reality is that in Africa, for instance, millions and millions of people have cell phones, and they don't have bank accounts, and they don't have computers, and they don't have... It's really true. It's amazing to hear that in the U.S., but when I was in Nigeria, everybody has a cell phone, and they don't have bank accounts. Sometimes you don't even have running water, and you have a cell phone. The penetration is incredible there, and the applications are vast. You can bank online, you can run, you can bank on your phone, you can communicate on your phone, you can do all sorts of things that you weren't really able to do 10, 15 years ago. And so the penetration of those devices is significantly higher than the PC. Yes, much, much higher. And what you're seeing is that these countries are able to jump
to go straight to mobile and the iPhone and what you need to do there and skip, having a computer, and they're able to really make that a part of their economy.
Okay, Max Raskin, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll talk to you soon. Turning now to the markets, we're at a relatively quiet day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing down 42.45 to 16,633. The Nasdaq off by 11.99, and the S&P 500 pulling back from a record high yesterday, down 2.13 to 19.09. Some of the top stocks we're watching today. McDonald's says it is returning between $18 billion and $20 billion to shareholders through stock buyback and dividends through 2016. McDonald's closing down $1.01. About the price of their dollar meal to $101.35. Competition from larger retailers is forcing Whole Foods shares to tank, according to analysts who also say the organic market chain is the worst performer in the S&P 500 this year. Whole Foods closing down $0.75 to $37.90. And homebuilder Toll Brothers shares up by more than 3% in early trading after reporting a profit of $65.2 million or 35 cents a share, up from $24.7 million or 14 cents a share last year. Toll Brothers closing up 74 cents for the day, 36.38, just under 3%. Commodities, gold down, and oil pulling back $1.25 to 102.86. So where are we headed on the economic news, and how about this rally? We're joined now by Kathy Boyle from Chapin Hill Advisors. Welcome back to the program, Kathy.
Great to be here.
You have said that this is we're in the late stage of the stock market rally. Why do you say that, and how late of a stage?
Well, how late of a stage will always be easy.
Question.
2020 later, right?
Yes.
Valuations are very pricey. Okay, lots of bulls out there. We've got 57% bulls, only 17% bears. That's a contrarian indicator.
Sure.
So when there's a lot of bulls out there, a lot of people are rationalizing why this market should go up. We've gone up quite a long time without any kind of substantial pullback. The last big pullback we really had was in 2011. Okay, and we've gone almost 5 years just straight up, basically. So, the market just doesn't go one direction forever. We've got some underlying GDP is only growing at 2%. Housing market isn't really chugging along. Jobs aren't really being created. So we've got a lot of headwinds.
Yeah, you're sort of a little bit more pessimistic than we've had other people in the program who say they agree that housing is soft, but they say, everything else is looking great. The GDP is going to look better. Inflation is low, but is inflation really low? Inflation
is low if you look at the government. Everything, everything but what you really use is how they calculate it. So
that's right.
If you
everything you don't need.
Exactly. So if you fill up your car, $4 up where I live in the New York area, right? $4 a gallon. It adds up. I've got a big SUV, $90. Boom. Groceries, how much did you pay this year versus last year? Cup of coffee. I mean, you name it. You go out to eat, it's more money. So inflation is certainly present in our lives, whether or not the government wants to tell us yes or no.
And that might mean, honestly, that consumers are going to cut back a little bit. Even though we see some strength in consumer confidence numbers, you always have to wonder, those numbers are so how are you feeling today kind of thing, aren't they?
They really are. And you know what? If you're employed and you have enough money in the bank, you feel good.
You feel good.
And if your 401k has been going up, which it has been, unless you've been under a rock, you feel good again. And that was the whole idea of the Fed. Keep rates low enough to push people into other alternatives. And so, you're seeing the stock market go up partially because there is no other alternative. So I'd rather take a dividend stock, put my money into utilities, put my money into oil. I was going to ask you,
what sectors do you like right now?
Well, utilities have been going up, not necessarily because they're a great value, but because they are paying dividends. And they were out of favor. And so money's been rotating. You're seeing money come out of the hot dot stocks and going into the value stocks. The Russell and NASDAQ up last week.
The Russell, the small caps.
Right, and NASDAQ, a lot of tech stocks. A lot of those individual stocks had their own little mini bear market. 967 of the Russell 2000 stocks actually fell 20% in this last month and a half. Now, they're rallying back up, partially because it got cheap enough. We're coming to the end of the quarter right now. So this end of May, we'll have to see if anybody does believe sell in May and go away. It didn't work last year. It has worked more often than not, but the sectors that I think are out of favor are where you want to go.
Does the summer represent a danger point because volume starts getting a little bit lighter as people kind of hang out in the Hamptons, et cetera, and therefore if people sort of get contrarian and start selling, is there a possibility that we may have a little bit of an oversell coming for this market?
Well, we were oversold in the middle of May, on the Tepper scare, right? And so the Tepper pulled down, and now we've rallied straight up for that. Emerging markets had a big pullback last year. year and the beginning of this year. From March until now, emerging markets are up about 15%. And transports are up 9%
Emerging markets are up 15%.
Yeah,
So,
just since March, since the March low. And they built a big base, so they rallied. But is this a peaky area now? You know, should you be careful? And unfortunately, people chase returns. So they look at what did well, and that's where they put their money.
And that's where retail investors get hurt the most.
Exactly.
Is they're chasing their return. Kathy
Exactly.
Boyle from Chapin Hill Advisors. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Coming up, banking without ever going to the bank. You're watching Arise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, I think I'd want broad, in-depth knowledge of important issues throughout the world.
I would want to recruit a fairly diverse staff that had different life experiences before they came to news.
We want to see how we can help ourselves and help benefit other people, and not just see what's up with the celebrities and where they're going and traveling and buying this and buying that.
If I were to build my own news network, it would certainly have to reflect a diversity of culture, because that's the global situation, that's the global reality.
I would probably bring a lot of personal stories, really personal stories from the leaders of all countries.
If I was to build my own news network, I would just have people who from all over who are very connected and diverse.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange. Africa is currently a small but growing part of the global natural gas picture, with its development holding tremendous opportunities for the continent. To talk more with us on the natural gas industry in Africa is Dan Fridson. He's an analyst with Real Assets Research, a New York-based firm focusing on energy and resource sectors. Dan, welcome to the program. Your first time here on Arise Exchange. We thank you for stopping on by. You know, when we think about Africa, we think about oil and we think about other commodities, but all of a sudden natural gas is at least, I mean, it's been on your radar for a while, but now it's starting to really take notice. Why?
Well, I think part of the reason is that they're finding large natural gas deposits in associated oil projects, whether that's in Nigeria, Angola, Cameroon, all these traditional oil-producing countries. And another reason for that is not only are they finding all this natural gas, but I think there's, it's a big story, the growing demand for electricity in Africa.
There's an infrastructure problem and a utility problem.
An infrastructure and utility problem. Countries are losing 2 to 3% economic growth because they simply don't have enough power. And so the political leadership is being asked in certain countries, okay, Nigeria, we're one of the biggest exporters of energy in the world, and yet, we have blackouts. So one of the solutions is that they're trying to work with the oil companies, the foreign or indigenous, to
They part of the issue has been over the decades. The criticism is that the oil companies take the oil and it leaves the continent. With natural gas, is that natural gas staying in Africa?
Well, for now, it's mostly being exported to Asia. There's a lot of demand for LNG from there, but increasingly they're trying to build local refineries. So Nigeria just announced with Seplat, which recently listed on the Lagos and the London exchanges, a deal to provide $300 million worth of natural gas to local power plants. And so there's that which will help reduce the power deficit, but also provide an opportunity for multinationals to continue doing business.
When we talk
there.
about natural gas in the U.S., it's all of a sudden the hot topic here for powering alternative means, for example, alternative energy, as well as shale and fracking. Is it the same in Africa?
No, because there's less of a, here we're doing fracking and unconventional plays because many of the conventional plays have been exhausted. But in Africa, that's not the case. There are still conventional natural gas resources to be exploited.
You say that big oil companies are right now in Africa. Are there startups getting involved in natural gas? Because the oil companies make more money pumping oil, don't they,
Sure.
than natural gas?
So you see a large group of so-called indigenous natural gas producers, Seplat, which I mentioned, just listed, and they're saying that may lead a group of companies in Nigeria and in other places to start to try to list on major exchanges, and they have the advantage of having better local ties in some cases and better government relations.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit about that because the oil companies have had a rocky relationship. If you're looking for investment opportunities in natural gas in Africa, what countries do you think are the most stable and the most opportunities? opportunities exist?
Well, Nigeria, from a pure reserve standpoint, certainly
Has
has the most that's been exploited. But Angola, Chevron has a big LNG project. Anadarko has a big project, natural gas in Mozambique. And Tullow, which is somewhat more of an Africa specialist than those other companies, they have a big offshore project in Namibia, the Kudu oil field, which discovered in 1974, but only just going to production now.
Why do you think it took so long to get natural gas interested in Africa?
Because I think there was oil there, and they said,
that's what we want.
Yeah, that produces the higher returns, and we want to get the oil, and they're willing to overlook a lot of problems if you have the high returns of oil. But natural gas, because of the lower margins, they were worried about some of the other political or stability issues that were there.
Okay. Dan Fridson with Real Assets Research. Thank you so much. It's an interesting topic. We'll have you back on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Time now for our business tick. Our story is making news around the world. Apple announcing that its hyped deal today with headphone maker Beats has been closed, or they have the deal in place, but at a slightly lower price of $3 billion. It was suggested that some videos posted by Beats co-founder Dr. Dre disclosing the deal and bragging about it would make him the first billionaire in rap. Apple did not like that. So the $3 billion deal is $200 million less than originally expected, amounting to a 6% reduction in cost, which means it isn't enough to fulfill his dreams of becoming hip-hop's first billionaire, but it's close enough. Dr. Dre is thought to hold around a 25% stake in Beats. Earnings for U.S. banks are down. They dropped 7.7% in the first quarter compared to a year earlier. The data released by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation highlighting how higher interest rates reduce demand for mortgage and refinancing and therefore revenue from the mortgage business. And Clippers owner Donald Sterling has vowed to fight the National Basketball Association on the sale of his team. Sterling met a deadline Tuesday to respond to the league's charge that he damaged the league with his racist comments. He argued there is no basis for stripping him of his ownership because his statements were illegally recorded during a lover's quarrel. Sterling's attorney also added that Sterling isn't selling the Clippers, contrary to a statement made by his wife's attorney. The NBA Board of Governors will vote on June 3rd. A 2/3 vote is required to strip Sterling of the team. With more than half of U.S. smartphone users engaging in mobile banking, banks are increasingly competing to cater to us on our handsets and tablets. Here to talk to us about the challenges of meeting customer expectations that goes with it is Jay Sidhu, CEO of Customers Bank Corp. Jay, welcome back to Arise Exchange. You were just here a couple weeks ago. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, thank you.
So mobile banking is kind of interesting because I'll tell you, when I was growing up, my dad liked to go in the car every Saturday. We had to drive to the bank because he liked somebody at the bank to talk to. Those days are kind of going away, aren't they?
Right now.
Or they've gone away.
Yes, I think they've gone away. Right now, 50% of Americans have not visited a bank branch in the last 12 months. If you look at the people below 35.
So does that mean an ATM or does that mean an actual branch?
No bank. They have never visited a bank branch. They have not visited in the last 12 months. Wow. Now, if you look at people below 35, the statistics show that only 5% of them have been to a physical bank in the last 12 months.
Why has that change occurred? Is it because the banks are less accessible? Is it because of technology?
I think the trends are changing. People have better things to do. When you look at the people below age 35, the millennials, they are tech savvy, they are tech dependent. They can in 5 minutes book a ticket around the world, but they walk into a bank branch, it would take them 25 minutes to open an account and they don't understand why. So they are looking for, So, and at the same time, what are banks doing? The traditional banks have opened up all these branches all over the place.
Boy, I hear in New York City, your bank, is based in Philadelphia, but you're right. Their branches are popping up, more than Starbucks coffee shops. And Starbucks you need to go into to get your coffee still. You can't, just order it on your phone. You can order it, but you still need to go get it. Why is there still this huge push for these branches?
I don't understand it. That's why we guys don't have them. We have very few, but Bank Mobile, we're starting Bank Mobile. It'll have no branches. Why? Because traditional banks have opened up these branches. So they charge all these ridiculous fees. Overhead. They pay low interest rates. They are ripping off, in my opinion, the consumers for $32 billion a year.
$32 billion is what's going into these fees.
Overdraft fees only.
Overdraft fees.
Only overdraft fees.
Yeah,
the only reason they charge overdraft fees, because I know I was running a big bank, was because we have these branches. The branches are totally unprofitable unless we charge these rip-off fees to consumers. That's why the customer wants no fees.
Okay.
Customer wants good rates. Customers want great service.
So how are you doing that at Customers Bancorp? How are you sort of changing the paradigm of thinking that this isn't less customer service, that you're getting the same value?
You get better customer service. We have video chats through Bank Mobile. You're going to open an account by just taking a picture of your driver's license. No errors. You can help people manage their money better. Create a social infrastructure so that people can learn how other people are spending money. Millennials today are
explain that social infrastructure. That's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Is there's sort of a social networking component here?
Yes, social networking component in a sort of a gamification, with a game. So we are going to be introducing all that in Bank Mobile. So it's cool, it's fun, it helps you manage money, it saves you money, and you don't have to spend time sitting around a bank branch.
And we're talking about money, though. For people who are nervous about their money, how do you make sure that this is all very secure? Because we all know the hacking problems are crazy. It's one thing to steal a few credit card numbers from Target. It's another thing to hack into people's bank accounts.
When you bank through your smartphone or your iPad, in fact, it is more secure than banking in a bank branch because the bank hackers are attacking the mainframe systems. Yeah. It's very difficult for them to attack on a cell phone or a smartphone into the system of that, how it's interfacing. So technology is not to say that nobody can ever attack, you never want to say that, but the amount of security that's gone in, like have you ever heard of Apple complaining or anybody complaining any of these apps have been hacked?
And I imagine real quickly, there's protection if somebody is hacked?
If anybody's hacked, you lose any money, 100% of that money is going to be refunded to the customers if it was ever misused.
Jay Sidhu, CEO of Customers Bancorp. Thank you so much. Ahead, we'll tell you what is the cocaine capital of Europe, and our favorite person of the day found a way to beat those red light cameras. You'll want to stick around for this. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Looking at mainstream news stations where only you have a very small minority of people of color being newscasters and actually having prominent roles in the media.
In a newsroom in the United States, maybe 10% of decision makers come from communities of diversity. That's not right.
Well, diversity is important because the more complete the news is, the more accurate a picture you're getting of the world, and the more you can form an accurate opinion of things.
The vision here is not just to tell the main stories of the day, but to tell the news that other organizations don't tell, and tell it in a way that people like me, people that look like me, that look like you, are interested in.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Time for liquid lunch, things that make us want to drink. We know the British like their tea and the occasional trip to the pub. But this might surprise you. London is now the cocaine capital of Europe. According to the European Drug Report, there is such a thing, Londoners use more coke than anyone else on the continent. The report samples the sewage, yuck, of 42 cities and found that London's sewage contained 711 milligrams of cocaine per 1,000 people. That's nearly twice as much as in Amsterdam. And it turns out peak coke use happens on Tuesdays. And it's not just the blow that's got the British hyped up. London also has one of the highest uses of the drug ecstasy. And that takes us to our favorite person of the day when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. You know those red light cameras that photograph your license plate if you speed through a traffic light? Well, one driver found a unique way to avoid being caught by one. He stole it. Police in Marysville, California says 19-year-old Manuel Herrera, there's the brain surgeon, crashed his pickup truck into a pole the red light camera sat on top of. Witnesses say the pole and the camera fell into the bed of his truck. So what did Herrera do? Well, since the camera probably had evidence of the crash, he just took off with the camera. But turns out there were other cameras on the scene from people's cell phones who had witnessed the brazen theft. Herrera has been arrested and charged with hit and run and stealing the camera. he is our favorite person of the day. Next, remembering Maya Angelou's impact on business leaders. You're watching Arise Exchange.
I think news does make people put things in black and white terms just so that they have a dividing line between what their viewers like and dislike.
When they see a person of color, they either think that they're not going to do anything, they're either on drugs or they got pregnant at an early age, and I just want to say that that's not true.
It tends to reflect more the interests of the upper income people and the upper income interests.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Her powerful, inspirational words encouraged and lifted millions around the world for decades. Tonight, we celebrate and reflect on the life of renowned poet and author Maya Angelou, who died today at the age of 86. Angelou is credited with having a major positive impact on the lives of everyday people and those in the spotlight, including President Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and former President Clinton. Human Bookstore in Harlem was a place that Maya Angelou would visit when in New York, and CEO Marva joins us now to talk about it. This is an incredible story. You knew her. Tell me a little bit about her.
Well, you know, I remember the first time that I met her, I felt as if a goddess had walked into our bookstore. She was so graceful, and she walked with her shoulders back and her head high, and I thought, wow, you know, how do you enter? She was truly a phenomenal woman.
You felt the energy around her.
Oh, we felt her energy. We felt her energy. And of course, we hosted her several more times, as well as her son, Guy Johnson, her only son. And so today, you know, we lost a phenomenal woman.
And, you know, there's someone on our staff here who met her and worked on a project with her. And her grace and kindness apparently translated all the way down to everybody who ever touched her.
To everyone, with a certain clarity. She was great for writers, you know, who loved her. She was great for people, as you talked about, Oprah Winfrey, who she mentored. She was great for her students, who, I mean, wrote a big thing today about that at Wake Forest, where she taught. You know, so she just, I mean, she spanned everything, you know, she spanned everything.
What was her philosophy on writing? What were her message points throughout her career?
You know, her message points to be honest. You know, that was a big thing for her. And you know how to be honest in writing. You've got to go deep down and you've got to strip off all of the barks of everything that you've been taught to hide. You know, so in her book, of course, which catapulted her to becoming one of the most famous writers of the 21st century, I Know That Why the Caged Bird Sang. That was what resonated with the audience, the total honesty, you know, and the laying open of a soul.
When you read her material, what personally do you feel from the material?
It's simple, it's clear, it's memorable, and you keep, that's why it's been around since 1970. How many years is that, 40, 50 years, you know? Because the book talks to the message, and she's simply
timeless.
It is absolutely timeless. And if you picked it up today, you pick it up in 2050, you'll get the same clean, open, honest writing.
When you hear from, you know, President Obama and Bill Cosby and Oprah Winfrey, all touched by her message, you know, how do you think her message impacted them and helps the leaders of today?
Well, I think Maya Angelou, you know, one of the big things, as I said before, that she really wanted to, she says never lie, and she learned that from her grandmother. You know, always be honest. And she was, I think, very much a mentor to Oprah because they had similar experiences as young people, and also because she had transcended to the spiritual person who seemed to be calm and ever present in life. And I think that's what a lot of the leaders learned about her. She was unflappable. She didn't flap, you know. She was so certain in herself and in her knowledge, and I think she imparted that.
What was her take on how the United States has come over these years, for example, on race relations? You know, what is the impression she had about that?
Well, you know, she always talked about, of course, you know, in the Caged Bird, she talked about overcoming this debilitating racism, you know, as much as everything else in her life, and how horribly it was growing up in a place like, I think it was Arkansas. And so, so as she's seen over 80 years, over 86 years, you've seen almost a century of change, you know, and post-1960s, you know, she's lived to 2014 to see race relations changing and changing for the better.
What do you think she wants to be remembered as today regarding her message? What do you think is the strongest message she has put put on
that she was a
give it as a gift.
phenomenal woman. She was a phenomenal woman who has left a legacy. I mean, imagine leaving this life with a legacy and a footprint that is so important. You know, that I think for generations to come, you know, she will sit in history.
And you know, we just had you on a week ago about
Yes.
digital books, but here's an example where the words on the page are something that will live on forever.
The words on the page will live on, and as long as the digital books don't crash, they may live on too. You know, hopefully they have lots of backups, right? But you know, you wouldn't want to have a Maya Angelou book as a digital book. That's something that belongs in
paper.
your library.
Okay.
Yes.
Marva Allen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and we'll leave you now with a few images of Maya Angelou. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Rise Exchange.